Okay, so I'm here recording a practice version of my presentation that I'll be giving at the Digital Engagement in Public Libraries seminar at the State Library. Apologies for any mistakes I make and the quality of the recording if it's bad. This, as I said, this is a practice and this maybe will go online after the presentation so that people can catch up with the presentation later on. So I will be talking about measuring digital engagement in public libraries. So the initial question that I want to ask is, why digital engagement? Why would we want to engage people online? And straight off the bat, I want to question the idea of separating digital engagement. I don't think it really helps to think of digital engagement separately from the physical library building. Your library has a reason for existing and you've got to undertake activities that have value to your community. So there might be different strategies for physical and digital engagement, but the goals of the library remain the same. I just want to take a slight detour here and suggest that there's a difference between experimentation with online channels and engagement. If you're spending time and, by definition, money in social media, for example, or promoting library services online, you should know why you're doing it. You should know how it helps your library and whether it has value for your community. So for me, the difference between experimentation and engagement is whether you've established your objectives and whether you're measuring how well you're meeting those objectives. And any results of that measurement should feed back into an analysis of your objectives and the activities that you're undertaking in a kind of, an ongoing cycle. So here's a couple of objectives that you might have for a public library. We want to strengthen the relationships we have with our users and turn them into lifelong users. So we want to use digital channels to connect people to the library. We want to increase our membership base and we want to increase the usage of our collection. So we want to attract non-users to the library. The rest of this talk is going to contain mostly statistics, but don't panic. I'll be looking primarily at data from Google Analytics for the Sutherland Shire Library's website where I work. And I know that statistics and data aren't everyone's cup of tea, but hopefully I can kind of tell a little narrative or a little story along the way. And if not, there's some colourful charts for you to look at. Hands up who reports sessions and visits, or sessions or visits rather, and page views to their council or their governing body or the statistical return for the PLB. So if all you want to do is increase those sorts of metrics, then ideally you would turn your website into a clickbait site, and every page on your website should have a title that starts with something like the 7 best ways to do something, or maybe you'll never believe how I something else, or you'll never believe the benefits of insert your resource. But if you want your visitors to your website to do something useful, however, you may need to look at some other reports. So I want to start with looking at how people find our website, how they get here, where do they come from. So any ideas, any guesses as to where most people start when they're looking for the library website? And you're right, it's Google. The big one here is organic traffic, organic search traffic. Organic search is traffic from search engines, but doesn't include paid search results. So think of Google AdWords. So you can think of this as people who search Google for something and then click on a result that brings them to your site or our site. This obviously has massive implications for how you write your content, which in my opinion is the biggest single factor in getting a high ranking in Google search results. But that's a different topic. That's too big a topic for today. Maybe there'll be another chance to talk about that sometime. Direct traffic, which is the next largest slice of this pie, is where someone uses a bookmark or types a URL directly into their browser. So there's not all that much you can find out about direct traffic, except that it's good. It means people like us enough to bookmark our site or remember our web address. And as we move down the slices of the pie into the orange section there, which is referral traffic, and that's traffic from people who've clicked on a link from another domain to get to our site. So I'm just going to explore that little section of the pie, and we'll come back to campaigns, social and email traffic. So this table here shows the top 10 referral domains for the first half of 2014 for our website, Sutherland Shire Library's website. And remember, this doesn't include Google, which gets classified as search traffic. So the rows there I've highlighted are the two Facebook domains, the mobile and desktop Facebook domain. And every other domain in that list, every other referral domain is one of our other web properties. So whether it be our catalogue, our Overdrive Freegal sites, our work intranet, our blog, historical photos, etc. So a lot of that traffic accounts from people going backwards and forwards between our various web properties. So looking at that, Facebook is obviously the social media channel we should be spending most time on, as it's most likely to provide the greatest return. Okay, so remember that little social slice of the pie? Let's go a little bit deeper into that and have a look at the different social media sources. So which social media channels do people go from into our website? This chart shows the breakdown that make up that small slice. And you can see at the top there, with nearly 3/4 of the social media traffic, the importance of Facebook can't be overstated for us. But things change. So when comparing with the year previous, Facebook had a higher percentage of the traffic, up at 83% as opposed to 74%, and a higher number of gross referrals, 846 during this period to 750 odd in the early part of 2014. Now that seems a little strange, as we would expect this to kind of build over time as we develop more likes and gather more likes on Facebook and post more content to Facebook, but it's dropping. So that begged the question, what was going on? The next couple of charts I'm going to show you come from Facebook's statistical reporting. They call it Insights. And this first one, when you think about it, they have a lot of information about what goes on their site, and actually the people that use the site. People sign up with demographic data, so they know a lot more about those people than what Google Analytics will. So it's a good, it's a very good spot to analyse the traffic that of people that are using your library. So maybe Facebook data can shed some insight into what's going on. And this first graph shows when our fans are online. So the first section there is the day of the week, and it's pretty steady, somewhere between 1,100 and 1,200 every day of the week. And the bottom half of the graph shows the time of day. So you can see when people get up, and it's fairly steady throughout the day from the kind of waking hours, from 6 or 7 a.m. right through to 9 a.m. where it peaks, and then it falls away as people go to bed. So it's pretty steady, probably doesn't give us too much of an insight there. This chart here shows the reach of the average reach of our posts. So just to put some context around this, in February 2015 we had 1,249 likes on our Facebook page. So that's 1,249 potential fans that could see our post. But if you note, in the average reach column, at best for a link post, we're getting a reach of 346 people. And 300 odd seems on the low side, given we've got nearly 4 times that number of followers. And here's the clincher. This last graph here shows the reach of paid versus non-paid or organic posts. Turns out that Facebook stopped showing all posts from organisational pages in individual people's feed. They limited the number of posts from organisation and company pages. And they talk about it in rhetoric about how people are dissatisfied with spammy posts from pages, which I'm sure is true. But if you pay to boost your post, Facebook is quite happy to show lots of people your spammy content. This graph clearly indicates the impact of Facebook's change to reduce the number of posts by pages shown in people's feeds. The dark orange peaks here show the reach of paid or boosted posts. So you can see there that when we paid to boost our post, we reached somewhere around the 1,000 people mark for the most part, which was near enough to all the people that liked our page. So I think that just really illustrates the impact that Facebook's change had on our potential to drive engagement through that channel. So just for a second, I want to go back to that original pie chart I showed you, the referrals for January to June 2014, just as a reminder so that I can compare it with the following 6 months from July to December 2014. So it looks fairly similar, but I can tell you that referrals from social media have reduced from 0.65% down to 0.47%, so it's becoming less of a driver of traffic to our site. But during the same period, email as a driver of traffic increased to 1.33% from 0.38%, so nearly 3 times as much. And that's because when we identified the issues with Facebook, instead of pouring money into Facebook's bank account, we decided to spend some money on getting serious with email marketing. So when we were working on this, we had been doing some email marketing using some free tools to send emails about events in the library. And we were getting confirmation when people rang us up to book into those events that they were hearing about it through the email. It was one of the top drivers of people booking in. It was one of the top ways people were finding out about our events, along with the local paper and the council newsletter. So it was one of the top 3 important channels. Given that we knew the importance of email, or how well email was performing for a very small number of people, we decided to set up a MailChimp account, which is a professional email campaign software, so that we could get more control over what we were sending and when we were sending it. I don't know if anybody's dabbled in email marketing at all, but it's notoriously difficult to get right. There's lots of ways you can stuff it up. In terms of designing your emails, it's very difficult to get it to work across all the hundreds of different email clients that people might be using. And just sending email out, to hundreds of people in the BCC field is a guaranteed way to get blacklisted by Gmail or Hotmail for spamming. And it's end of days. Once they ban you, you can't get back in, sort of thing. So MailChimp takes a lot of the difficulty and hassle out of doing email marketing well. And part of the value that they provide is extremely good reporting. So we can get reports about every email campaign that we send out. And, looking through them, I can tell you that we are consistently above the industry average for opens of those emails and clicks on links within those emails. So MailChimp costs, and it's not super cheap for us, but it's definitely worth it. Which leads me onto the topic of campaigns. So campaigns is a defined channel in Google Analytics, and campaigns track visits to your website from your promotional efforts. And now that can be either, say, in print or online, but outside your own website, so not links between different pages of your own website. And in order to track campaigns, you need to add some key value pairs, some parameters to any URL you're using to link back to your website, and those values that you provide appended to the URL can be tracked by Google Analytics, and you can see reports in Analytics of how your campaigns are performing. And if you just look, that's a Mango Languages brochure that we've got there, and we're using very short URL aliases, so campaign URLs like Sutherland Shire, nsw.gov.au/mango. And we're using our web server to redirect those short, easy to remember URLs to deep into our site to the correct page with the campaign tags, the campaign tracking attached to the URL. So it makes it easy for the user, and it helps us track our campaigns, track our promotional efforts. You can read a lot online about how campaigns work, and Google, if you search for URL Builder, Google provides this tool that will help you generate campaign URLs. And you can see, I've just right at the bottom there in that red box, I've tried to highlight the extra bits and pieces that go on the end of your URL to denote a campaign. So you may have seen these sort of UTM source equals Facebook, UTM medium equals social, and campaign equals Mango languages. Especially if you've clicked on emails from clicked on links rather in email campaigns from other people, or social media links, and they're used to track campaigns in Google Analytics. And that's what they look like. So if you've seen them before and didn't know what they meant, that's what they're for. Just a little on generating URLs again, like if you're using Hootsuite or Bitly or Buffer or any sort of tools that allow you to share to social media, or link shortening tools, there's generally some settings in there that will allow you to auto-generate your campaign URLs. And this screen here is a screen from Buffer, which we use to post our or post things to Twitter, but it allows us in the settings there to turn on campaign tracking, and it adds the campaign tags automatically to the URLs we share. So here we are with a table of our campaign sources for 2014. And there's a number of ways you can view campaign information in analytics, and this report shows the visits to our site from campaign sources broken down by medium. So you can see there the clear illustration of the effectiveness of email channel for us when it comes to promotion. It's nearly 2/3 or over 2/3 of the promotional traffic. But there's a few others in there: offline, print, brochure. These are all, synonyms for offline print material, and add them all up, and they're a significant proportion of our campaign. So clearly illustrates the it shows that it still generates traffic for us to our website from our print sort of material. And so by digging a bit deeper into the stats and looking at these sorts of things and setting up some campaigns and that sort of stuff, we've got a bit more information or a bit more insight into our users' behaviour, which has confirmed for us the importance of supporting our digital resources, our overdrives and other Freegles and databases and so on, with offline support and promotion. And we do that in a number of ways. We've found that helping people get their devices set up for reading ebooks, say for Overdrive, in person, letting them come into the library and giving them a hand to get set up, is really effective. Along with, we give talks in the library about technology topics, and we always throw one every few months in there about the various digital services and resources that we have available for people. And we always make sure we've got some brochures that people can take away if they come in and we suggest ebooks and they haven't heard of them, they need to go away. We try and have a brochure that they can take away with some information about how it all works. We do those seminars we call them Taming Technology Talks for seniors, and we even got a little bit of a write-up in the Australian a few years ago for our seminars on keeping older people up to date with technology. So they've been really popular. Just want to move from campaigns now to event tracking. So I was explaining with campaigns, that's how you track your promotional efforts from outside your website. And that's what campaigns are for. But we don't just want people to come to our website. Once they've arrived at our website, we have certain things that we want them to do in order that we're achieving our goals. So we want them to use our digital resources. We want them to borrow an ebook. We want them to subscribe to an email list. We want to download songs from Freegle. We want to search for journal articles and databases, those sorts of things. So if they're coming to our website and they aren't doing those things, then we're not really achieving what we're set out to do. And event tracking is the technique that allows us to see what's happening with that and to track whether we're succeeding in that area. So if you think about how people interact with your website, they might be clicking on links in between pages. They might be playing videos if you've got a video embedded on your page, downloading a document, those sorts of things, submitting a form. And in a lot of cases with libraries, when they click on a link to use a digital service, they're leaving the library website and going somewhere else. And once they've left the library website, we can't track them in analytics anymore. So by measuring or tracking that click, that allows us to get a bit more insight into whether they're doing what we want them to do. Okay, and because when they leave the website, they're not necessarily being tracked out from our analytics, tracking the clicks, those sorts of things wouldn't otherwise be tracked. You wouldn't otherwise have any stats on them. So this is just a screen grab from the Mango Languages page on our website. Now it should be really obvious, but what we want people to do here is to click on that Get Started button and go and use the Mango Languages app. We have an annual subscription cost. It doesn't change if we use the application more. So, it's better return on investment for us. It's a lower cost per session if we can get more people to use Mango more often. So the design of our web page should make it obvious and easy for anyone who's potentially going to do that to do it. So we're trying to maximise the chances that people who see this page will click through to Mango and minimise the chance that they'll do something else. But as I said, clicking on that link will take them off to the Mango website, and that's the end of tracking. We won't have any more analytics. It's not recorded by our analytics without event tracking. And by adding event tracking to our calls to action, those buttons, we can measure whether people are clicking on the things we want them to click on. So when someone clicks through from our website, off our website and onto one of our digital resources, we can record that click. And this report shows those events by category. Those categories are things we've identified as links that we're trying to steer people towards. So they measure clicks on the parts of the pages that we want people to click on. And the top one in the list there, the CTA button resource, contains the clicks through to our digital resources. So that's all our Overdrive, Friggle databases and so on. And it's pleasing that it's at the top of the list, is because it's one of our top objectives, is to get people to use our digital services. So we're aiming to smooth the path for people from our website through to those resources, and hopefully that will increase their usage if it's easy to do. So you can go a little deeper into event tracking and analytics as well, and this is a table that just shows that all those CTA button resource events broken down by the label that we've applied to them. So this is what we use to differentiate the different services. So you can see Zinio magazines there, Overdrive, Friggle, Picture Sutherland Shire as our historical photos, and that Get Started one is used for pretty much of all our kind of journal databases and so on. So we're reliant on vendors. Once they click on these links, we can track the clicks from our website, but once they leave our website, we're reliant on the vendors' statistics and reports to tell us the amount of usage those services are getting. But by using event tracking, it can really help identify for us if our website is helping smooth the path or not, or if it's putting barriers in the way, if there's certain parts of the site that aren't, that people aren't getting to where we want them to go. So event tracking is really good for that. Okay. As part of setting objectives to measure against, we're in a sense defining what we want people to do on our website. We're defining our goals. Some types of our engagement with our website could potentially be more valuable to us than others. So, as an example, if you're using an expensive resource, for instance, or something that we've spent a lot of time organising, an event, or maybe something that cost a lot of money, might be more valuable to us if we can get people to use them or book into that event than a cheaper resource, or a free one from the state library that's provided by the state, by New South Wales Net, for instance. So an event booking may be more valuable than an ebook download, but an ebook download might be more valuable than something else. And Google Analytics has this concept of goals that you can set up. Okay, so we're getting pretty deep here, but stay with me, we're nearly there. Google Analytics allows you to define tasks on your website, and then when someone successfully completes one of those tasks, it's called a conversion, and you can assign a dollar value to that conversion. So there's a number of ways that you can define a task. The classic example is by a success page URL, a goal URL, where you have a unique URL of a page at the end of a task that is only shown after someone completes it. So think of an email sign-up page. There'll be a page URL at the end where you confirm that they've successfully signed up, and if they get to that particular page, then they've successfully completed the sign-up process and they're on your email list, so you've achieved the goal. And in e-commerce, it's a similar sort of straightforward idea. If you get to the completion of an order stage, someone's made the purchase, and that's ultimately what you're trying to achieve. So they've successfully converted. We've talked about events, and they're another way that you can define a goal when an event fires. So here's our list of goals. The final step of most of these goals occurs on another domain. So if we look at the first one, click on book event, well, people book in on Eventbrite on another domain. If they're going to one of our databases, then they're actually doing the searching and downloading of articles on separate domains. They're downloading ebooks on the Overdrive domain, and so on and so forth. So the last step that we see in our site of that process is when they click on the link to leave our site, and that's where we're tracking the event. So the event becomes the goal conversion. That's what we're aiming for people to do. So goal URLs don't work for us, but event tracking does. And if people are succeeding in clicking on the right buttons and we're converting, it helps us evaluate how well our website is contributing and whether there are parts of our site that are problematic for people trying to complete the tasks we've identified. So this is a screen showing the goal setup process. And I've just using the book event button goal. So as I said, once they click on that button, they leave our site, but clicking on that button is an essential step on the path to coming to our events. You need to book in, and in order to do that, you need to get to Eventbrite. So if you're clicking on that button, you're really going down the path that we want you to go down. So we've set up a book now button on all our event pages, and we're tracking clicks on that in our analytics, and that's one of our goals. So when we assign that event to a goal in analytics, it allows us to record a value whenever someone completes it. So at the moment, all our goals are generally assigned a value of $1. It's just an arbitrary value. So this is all still fairly kind of new to us. And we could certainly do with having more of a think about the relative values of different goals, trying to align those with the cost of resources or the time it takes to put in, the staff cost, the resource cost, and those sorts of things. And what we want people to do, by prioritising our goals, we might be able to assign values more appropriately, rather than just making every event $1. But for now, it gives us some data to look at. And this is the goals overview for the last 6 months. As I said, our relative values need more work, but even with an arbitrary value assigned to our goals, we can get an indication of the kind of return on investment that our website contributes. And you can see there the goal value is over $48,000. Sorry about that. This page also shows the different goals and how much they contribute. So you can see which ones contribute a lot and which ones contribute less. And the eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that the subscribe to email goal has 0 completions. I can explain. We've just made some changes to that goal. So it's not recorded any conversions for that time period, but it is recording conversions as of this year. Once again, like events and campaigns, there's many different ways that you can look at and break down that information in analytics. This report here shows goal conversion rates by channel for the book event goal. So remember that organic search was our top traffic source by a long way. However, it has a relatively low conversion rate of 13.5%. So that's kind of only 1 out of 7 or 8 visits from a Google search result ends up in a conversion. But it does contribute nearly 50% of the book event clicks, just because of the volume of traffic that comes through that channel. But if you compare it, for instance, with the other channel, which is in a sense our campaigns, which is essentially our offline campaigns, our brochures and posters, etc., and that has a relatively high conversion rate of 38%, or nearly 4 out of 10 visits, if you take away our brochure and type in the URL, results in a goal conversion. So even though our promotional efforts on campaigns offline might only represent a small percentage of the total traffic that comes to our site, the people that come as a result, or people that come through that channel, are more likely to do one of the things that we want them to do. So it's reports like this that can help you decide whether you need to continue doing certain things or cease doing other things. So, whether it's worth producing brochures and having them printed in colour, etc. Okay, so I realise it's been a bit of a deep dive into Google Analytics, so I just thought I'd give you a moment to come up for air and take a breath before I just finish by focusing on what I really want you to take away from this talk. I don't want you to think you have to remember exactly which things we're tracking at Sutherland, and I don't want you to think you should be tracking necessarily the same things. Everybody and every library is different, and different objectives will require you to measure different things. You shouldn't take note of all the reports that I've shown. I wouldn't worry about that at this stage. I've only scratched the surface of what's possible on Google Analytics. You don't have to remember which techniques and charts and tables I've shown. There's mountains of information on setting up Google Analytics, and there's mountains of tutorials on the web, and there's innumerable blog posts on which reports in analytics are the most important. There's also some really good courses that you can do to learn more about setting up Google Analytics, all from people who have far more in-depth knowledge than I do. I can recommend the courses provided by a company called Loves Data. They do them in Sydney a couple of times a year. And they have, when I did it, was a 3-day course, and it was highly worth doing the extra days to get a bit more information about how you can track different things. So if you want to learn more, that's a good way. But there are 2 points I do want to leave you with. Firstly, there's no excuses for not knowing how your digital services and resources are contributing to your library. The data is out there, and it's easier than ever before to measure what's happening in the digital world, far easier than it ever has been to measure what's happening in the library, in the physical library. And for the most part, the people that record this data store it for you kind of indefinitely. So there's, you can always go back and see what's happened in the past, look back through time and build a picture to help you work out what you should do in the future. And secondly, I really want to emphasize that if you can be clear about the objectives of your digital, anything you do in the digital sphere, whether it be your website, social media, etc., if you can clearly set out your objectives, it's much easier then to ask yourself the right questions to determine your success. So you have to know what you want to know, and setting clear objectives helps with measurement, but it also helps in all sorts of other ways. Knowing what's important to you helps you prioritise and make decisions about all sorts of parts of your digital strategy. So from content on your website to governance about this sort of stuff, to the design and so on. Just having clear objectives makes all of those things much easier to assess whenever there's any sort of disagreement or questions about which way you should be going. And so really that's the last thing I want to leave you with. So thanks for listening, and I hope you found it useful.